Let's look into the orb and find out what kind of video we're having today. Ah, I see. You want me to change the radio station after insulting me for my music taste? Well, okay then. Read so many amazing and funny stories, thought I could finally contribute. I work in a really small gym, small team. Members are greeted by name. We almost always have time for small talk and stuff like this. Overall, a very friendly, almost family-like environment. We have a lot of older folks coming in. The afternoons are a lot younger though. The premises are small. I have seen bigger weight rooms at colleges, and there are not more than 10 to 12 people occupying the weight room at the same time. And that's on a busy day. You get the idea. So this guy, let's call him Jay. He's 80. He is resistant to feedback though, so from a health standpoint, there's room for improvement, but he never listened in the past, so I don't bother anymore. He usually comes in the last moment, even though his sessions are quite long. No matter if he comes in 20 minutes earlier than usual, he always leaves 1 minute before we close down. He takes forever in the changing rooms, and always makes it a point to come out 1 minute before closing time. And I've suspected in the last past that he sits in the changing room, even though being done, and just waiting until the last minute. I had to work one day on Christmas, and with a small gym like ours, I expected to be out at least 30 minutes prior to closing. Nope. He stayed until exactly closing time, saying, "Oh, I made it just in time," with a poop-eating grin, and took another 5 minutes to leave the premises, which I had to lock up after him. I was late for something I hoped to be on time for, and I was angry. In my humble opinion, you just don't do that. He openly mocks my clients or me when I train them, but never inappropriately, which makes it really hard to say anything. Also, refusing to turn off his phone that we store for our members, off or on silent, so that when his alarm goes off, I have to follow him like a servant to turn it off. I asked him to turn it to silent, and his response was, "Oh, it can't possibly be bothering you." Anyway, so we play a radio station to have some music in the background. Usually it is something like the most played station in our area, something you would expect most people to like. Some work out with their headphones, but especially the older folks won't, and are more sensitive. Most days, I cannot stand our radio stations because they mostly play the same stuff over and over and over, and it drives me nuts. So, I sometimes play a different genre. Now, I know music tastes differ, so I make sure it's not too loud. It is also nothing crazy or disturbing. Since changing it a few times, I've gotten many complaints. People saying they like the change in tune, and so on. One day, I have the different station on, and Jay walks up to me. "Hey, insert OP, I have a question for you. Do you like the music that is being played at the moment?" "No," I say. "Actually, I have a habit of changing the station to something I don't enjoy, so of course I like it." "Oh, someone can possibly enjoy this kind of music." "Yes, actually, they can," I respond. "But you don't have to play it here. I can imagine people don't like it. It's not appropriate, and it makes me quite aggressive." Well, I know that tastes vary, but so far I've gotten nothing but positive feedback. You are the first person to actually complain. "Huh, I can't imagine that I am." And he walks off. In the meantime, I hear him bother the other 3 people to ask if they like the music, and if they'd like the station changed. He finds one person that is indifferent to the music being played, but would like a station change nevertheless. So he walks up to me again. OP, so I found this guy, and we agree the station should be changed. We would prefer something like insert station that plays slow old people music. Sorry if that offends anyone. Cue malicious compliance. Sure, if people ask that nicely, I have absolutely no problem to change the station. But I will not play the station, as a lot of people would not like something so slow and tiring in the background. But I'll make sure to change it so it won't bother you anymore. I changed the station a few times, as per his request that day. It was always a very specific channel, different genre, never just the charts radio, and every time he realized what I did, he requested another. I think we made it through about 5 stations until he finally gave up. After this, his phone went off once again, and I told him to turn it off. He said the same thing I mentioned earlier, and I said, "Well, it makes me quite aggressive," followed by, "If it's not turned to silent, I will not store it for you anymore. I am not your secretary." Since then, I will have my station and the chart station on rotation. If he gets a day with my station, he never, ever complains anymore. Manager insists I do my job properly. Well, I'm all too happy to comply, sir. In the early 2020, I was hired under the title assistant manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires. Well, with an I instead of Y if you're American, and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owned several stores. I reported directly to my manager, who then reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was, shall we say, far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy. I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part, as I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months. He would also knock off, work early, and start drinking beer whilst the rest of us continued to work. I remember when he found out that I participated in MMA training sessions after work. He tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly, this guy didn't like me, and it was starting to get to the feeling that he was trying to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, my employment. I became even more certain of that with what happened next. So here's the story. During the first few months that I had worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and sales records did not match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour trying to figure out where the errors were coming from, while the manager would simply throw his hands in the air and exclaim that he had no idea how this was happening. The reoccurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our sales invoicing software. Other times there would be less. I was, at the time, an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree. I was already suspicious of the cash being out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up until this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me, and boy was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off. During this time, I managed a personal record in store sales, and I noticed something interesting. The cash was never out of place at the end of each shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company, given I was the acting manager during the time my manager was away, and I was expected to report to the owner every day, and explained what had been occurring whilst the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful the owner would be having a word with the manager about the discrepancies. However, I was also wary, as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager, that the manager will immediately know it was me who reported this. When the manager returned to work, he immediately approached me with a disgruntled look on his face. "I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies. You should just focus on doing your job properly. Then this wouldn't happen." I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place the blame on me. Given his reaction, I'm now even more suspicious at this point. He wants me to do my job properly, eh? Malicious compliance ensues. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager. Behind his back, I began examining all of the sales transactions and invoices with a fine comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty. When it came to a few cash sales, my manager was doing the following. He would tell the customer the price is $200 if he pays cash. He would discount the price by $50 in the sale invoicing software. He would then put the extra cash in the till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash up at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket this extra cash whilst no one was around. Though he was very foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled, hence why the cash would be up some days, didn't swindle enough, or the cash would be down other days. He swindled too much. I took screenshots of the discounts he had been given on sales and sent them to the business owner along with a report. A report with a detailed description of my findings. The report also showed that on all days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. When he was there, well, the owner was infuriated. The man had been his trusted employee for years. The owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test, pee in a cup style, on the same day he found out. And to no one's surprise, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite the meth habit. This was most likely his sole motive for stealing cash. And the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in this store, and so the thought of a manager walking around high as a kite wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professional. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred under this manager's watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract, and was later taken to court by the owner in an attempt to recover the stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. Well, you'll love to see it. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.